Hi, my name is Rob Scott from UC Today News, and in this session, I'm joined by Oded Gal, former Chief Product Officer at Zoom. And today, we're going to be exploring UC and collaboration use cases for ChatGPT. Welcome, Oded. How's it going?
It's great. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for joining me. This is an exciting session. Look, I love this topic right now. It's hot, smoking hot, in fact, and generative AI and ChatGPT is just so many different ways to explore it. But today we're going to talk about how this kind of, I suppose, rolls into the UC collaboration and even the contact center space. But first of all, Oded, tell us what you've been up to recently. What is it you're doing now?
Yeah, I've been working with a variety of startups as an investor and advisor and board member. And, generative AI has been coming up more and more. And there are all kinds of use cases that we'll talk about, but it's really interesting. It's a good time to really be in this space.
Yeah, and knowing your background, I mean, you are perfectly positioned to talk about this because I can imagine you really do enjoy this kind of thing. And I suppose taking technology and productizing it and making it, work for a business is exactly what you've done for a long time now, isn't it? And, you've got quite the resume, with this kind of thing. So let's start by talking about innovation in this space. I mean, generative AI is, or has gone off like a rocket recently. Why is it moving so fast?
Well, it's moving fast because it keeps getting better. And the technology from, compute power, from the, size of the data sets, from the algorithm of machine learning, all getting better and better. And really, you can see that in a matter of weeks, things are improving on generative AI, specifically with ChatGPT and with Google Bard. So it's really great to see how things are moving so fast and getting better as things are, being used more and more.
Yeah, and I can imagine we don't appreciate what's going on in the background here, but Microsoft put 10 billion investment into OpenAI, and Google's got billions in the bank, I can imagine. So there's a lot happening in the background, isn't there, to kind of make this happen. But ultimately, these big providers like OpenAI and Google are almost offering this as a platform, aren't they? Like an API and that vendors can use. I mean, you tell me. I mean, how does this work with UC and collaboration vendors, and how have they been able to adopt this so quickly?
Yeah, I think first of all, there's really UC is crowded space, and vendors are looking for ways to differentiate and innovate, and this is a great opportunity for them. And I think in general, from a technology standpoint, communication and collaboration really has a lot of data sets, and so it can be leveraged for really creating this improved productivity. And UC is all about productivity. And if you can make it even better and make the communication even more frictionless, you basically increase the productivity. And several use cases that I described in my article that we can talk about, but this is the core of it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We've come a long way from the phone on the desk when it was never considered a productivity device, but now it is. UC as a kind of overall concept now is certainly in that productivity camp, and with, I suppose, the change in workplaces, hybrid work and that kind of thing, it's all about productivity now, isn't it? It's absolutely on every business's mandate, I can imagine, nowadays. So let's talk through some use cases, because this is the kind of real juicy part of the conversation, isn't it? Where we're kind of going to dig a little bit deeper in terms of kind of how to use the ChatGPT's style technologies, in different ways in businesses, and ultimately get that value. So first of all, I want to talk about personal assistants. I mean, are our digital twins finally here to save us time and make us complete, tasks faster? How's this going to play out? Are we going to end up like more productive humans, or are we going to end up lazier humans?
Yeah, hopefully more productive. And I think the intent with these virtual personal assistants is to really take over the repetitive non-creative tasks that people need to go through, and leave them time to be kind of more communicative, more creative, and do the things that really they have passion for. So that's kind of how I feel, kind of high level, about the virtual assistant.
And in terms of virtual assistants, I mean, are we going to in the future, are we kind of going to have almost like a digital twin, a type of second identity that's going to be able to kind of almost kind of work on our behalves? Is that how you think this might play out? What do you think?
Well, think about chief of staff, for example. Now, these days, there's a chief of staff for maybe only the CEO. Think about a small group manager that has their own chief of staff that helps them and gives them kind of advice, coaching, and even takes care of the repetitive tasks. Think about it. I would think about it this way.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to just say something to my bot and it just kind of goes away and does it, and maybe takes care of some of those repetitive tasks like we all have in our everyday lives, right? So
I think just to add to that, that's what is really have changed with AI in general, where generative AI is the ability for the technology to really, one, create content, but also follow tasks. And that's the big improvement, the innovation that is kind of making this so appealing.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And I love the way, we all communicate, right? We spend most of our day, 80% of our day, communicating in one way or another. I think the average number of emails that people receive daily now is like 120 or something like that they have to deal with. And just being able to, respond faster, craft emails, messages, just that little bit faster, maybe with a little bit more value or a little bit more accuracy, I can see big benefits there for workers and as employees and as as a business as well. So
absolutely,
super exciting. We're going to see more on that front, aren't we? Because we're going to see CoPilot enter our Microsoft 365 suite, and I'm sure Google, Gmail, and all that, all their suite, the workplace suite is going to be all enhanced with AI. So, probably this year. Are you thinking we're going to see more and more this year, or do you think it's going to be more 2024?
I think some of it will come out this year. Microsoft already announced the CoPilot. It's actually already helping developers today, but they announced how it will impact just, Office users. So that's really exciting to see how that comes into play. Hopefully this year, yes.
Yeah, exciting. Let's talk about a second use case. So in the collaboration space, in the UC space, we're always having meetings, right? So we're always, we're certainly office workers and hybrid workers always having meetings, but it's big in the UC space because this is the kind of technology that we deliver. How does this work then? How do we use generative AI to improve the meeting experience?
This relates a lot to the automation and the task management that generative AI will bring. In this case, just setting up a call like this, or it's even harder in larger meetings where you have to really do multiple things at the same time. Make sure you invite the right people, make sure they come on time, moderate the meeting, the content needs to be, enticing and appealing, all these moving pieces together. It's hard for one person to do on their own.
Making notes.
Taking notes, summarizing the meeting, taking action items, there's so much to do. And people just kind of fade out and are not active in the conversation as much as they could if someone would have done it for them. And in many cases, you have a group of people running a large meetings because everyone is doing their own thing. And most people cannot afford having 3 people running a meeting. So I think that's a big thing about it. And really, I gave an example in my article about, think of a webinar where you have to do so much and you have to really even the configuration of a webinar, for sure, with Zoom and Teams and other platforms, is you have to be very knowledgeable. So just, making sure you think of it, you will write down in words how you want your event to pan out. And this system will be able to really configure the event based on your requirement, and even, test it live ahead of time to make sure everything is ready and you can sit and relax and focus on really delivering your message. That's a huge advantage that really, I think, will help in these large meetings.
So you think effectively that, from and the meeting room has always been a end user nightmare, hasn't it? From a complexity point of view, and you've done a great job, as vendors to really kind of make things a lot better for people entering meeting rooms and trying to connect up to screens and meetings and that kind of thing. But what you're saying here is that potentially could we, be further improving and enhancing that kind of user experience, when using these technology tools and meeting platforms and that kind of thing. Is that what you're saying?
Definitely. This is one of my future topics, is really the spaces. And, with the hybrid work, the spaces are becoming even more complex because you have a mix of people remote and in the office. And it's even more complicated than it used to be when you have like 10 people in the room and then 1 or 2 remote. And that will make things even more complex for people to handle and manage. And that's where generative AI can come into play and make things flow automatically in the room based on sensors, based on really understanding the personal requirements for the user and understanding the actual meeting itself and who is in that meeting. So there's a lot to do in the actual spaces as well.
And I suppose a very important part of this is the kind of ability to, record voice and turn that into kind of text and more data that these engines can interpret, right? So from an analytical point of view, I imagine, being able to take the spoken conversation from a meeting, and ingest that and into a platform. I suppose generative AI can then offer some real kind of data insights and maybe process things and create action summaries, as you said before.
Yes, that will be used. I think one of the big things of generative AI is the fact that the user interface is natural language. Now, ChatGPT is using script and text that is entered through just typing, but the same can be applied with speaking. And so the understanding of human language and not needing to know a specific language for a certain device or a certain environment is really a huge improvement, a huge innovation aspect of ChatGPT and generative AI, definitely. That think of the UI of software will change to just natural language. That's the future in my eyes.
And is that potentially, and we're getting a bit far out here, but is this potentially, with the advent of, spatial computing? I mean, even, Tim Cook was talking about spatial computing this week when they launched the Apple Vision Pro. But, this concept of having, spatial computing around us all the time, I suppose that's when the voice in AI really can kick into action. Is that fair to say?
Definitely, you can create a more immersive experience that feels more natural than just looking and staring at a screen with just a flat person on the other side. People talking about meeting fatigue, then that can help on that and create better connections between human beings. You've seen a Vision Pro with their spatial audio and video. That will make the experience really much more immersive, definitely.
Yeah, loads of potential. Okay, and from, I suppose, last but not least, on the kind of use case front, generative AI can really help kind of automate workflows. I know we've touched on this already, but integrating this with apps and platforms that a business has got. How does that work, and why does that matter?
I think in the UC space, there've been years of discussions and conversations about it's not about the communication itself, but how it integrates with other application, the work stream, the workflow, all these, big words that were used in this space. But then at the end of the day, for the end user to create this integration between multiple applications, it's hard. You have to wait for IT to integrate. You have to, know what to do and how each software operates to really be able to get this workflow working. And so only a few people have used it. If you think about, Slack users, mostly technical, people know how to use the bots. Regular people who just, do regular tasks, they don't use the integrations to the extent that they can be used. But with generative AI, these workflows can happen almost automatically. And, one thing is to really suggest the integration to the user based on their personal preferences, and to even kind of build the code to integrate between the applications on the fly to make the integration work. So integrations between applications, especially in the UC space, will be really beneficial. And you can see what I wrote in terms of the article and really showing us the CTO of OpenAI demonstrating an integration that is really mind-blowing in terms of, making tasks work automatically without their intervention. And that's a big advancement in the UC space.
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, can humans cope with all these superpowers that they're about to receive? What do you think?
It's a great question. And in my eyes, there needs to be some type of, supervision or kind of transparency. So people need to be aware that this is not a human being that they're communicating with or helping them. It's a machine. So that awareness needs to be there in terms of the transparency. The other thing that I've seen, OpenAI do is, and ChatGPT, is the prompting, meaning it doesn't really automatically does it all the way through. It actually prompts the user to approve the next task. So, if the example is, I'm going to create an image and send it to Twitter to all my followers, it doesn't just do it. It creates the image, asks you if it's good, and then before sending it to Twitter, it will again ask you whether this is okay or not. So there are ways to control so that it doesn't really take over.
Yeah, I think that's that there's certainly a scary side to AI at the moment, but as you say, with the right control and governance and regulation, I think it will just be should be just fine ultimately. But we'll see how it plays out. And in terms of playing out, if anyone is looking for advice in terms of kind of getting started with generative AI, what steps for success would you offer?
So first, I think people need to embrace it and think about it as a positive way. And, this is progress. Technology is there. And think about generative AI as something that is a utility rather than this, scary kind of aspect of technology that will take on humanity. So embrace it. Because if you don't embrace it, you will be left behind. And that's all the whole idea of the article I wrote is think about the pragmatic aspects of generative AI, how it can really help become a utility, increase the productivity, connect people in a better way so that you can focus on connecting rather than the technology behind it and, setting it up and working hard to really make a 5 minutes call work. So these are the things that people need to think about, how it really improves and their communication and how it's more of a pragmatic aspect, at least in the short term.
Yeah, some great advice there. Well, super exciting technology, as you say, a great utility if you can implement it in the right ways. But lots of use cases in the communication space and collaboration space. So thank you so much, Oded. It's been great talking to you today. Lots to take away, and I'll certainly plug a link to the article in the description. Yeah, thanks again, Oded.
Thank you, Rob. Great to be here.
And that's it from us. And if you're new to UC Today, subscribe. If you're not, then give us a like or even a share. With this video, it's always appreciated. I'm Rob Scott from UC Today. Thanks for watching.